Hey, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host of Sales and Cigars. Today's episode is how to think different about marketing with my buddy Matt Anderson. And we're going to talk about the competition paradox. What does that mean? Well, that's what we're going to get into. But the way you think about your competition, the way you talk about your competition has a significant effect on your offers, has a significant effect on how you're perceived by your prospects. It's really important. I mean, your competition isn't just the other companies that are selling something that is similar to yours. It's the status quo is probably your biggest competitor. So we're gonna talk about those words that we use, how to fight for that space in our prospect's mind. So go grab a cocktail, grab a cigar, strap in for another impactful episode of Sales and Cigars. So Matt, welcome back to Sales and Cigars. I appreciate you taking some more time today.
Yeah, thanks, Walter. This is always a lot of fun. I think it's great to get some marketing people and salespeople together to, we're all talking about how to persuade customers, but from very different perspectives.
From different perspectives. And I was talking to a guy today, sort of a little tangent here, but I was interviewing a sales manager for a client. And he said, sales and marketing, marketing and sales, it's all the same thing. And I almost ended the interview at that moment. Because it's like, they're not.
Right.
They're completely different stages in the levels of engagement. We need to be congruent. There's a lot of things that we need to be able to play nice in the sandbox, but that's just dumb, a dumb statement in my mind. But what I was at a sales conference last week, and they have their marketing person who does enterprise marketing and sort of that big level marketing stuff. And in the last couple of years, she has stated that her feeling is that marketing and sales are getting along better. We're sharing data. We're sitting at the same table and explaining, if you do that, we get this. Yes. And because of that conversation that's happening internally, the outcomes are wildly better. We're going faster.
Totally. Yeah. I think that the advent of modern CRM systems and then the marketing analytics software that has emerged over the last 5 or 10 years has really exposed in ways that we can understand what is actually happening in our sales and marketing processes. Early in my career, when CRM systems were less advanced and there was very little in the way of marketing automation software at most of my clients, very often what would happen is there'd be a come to Jesus moment and sales would be pointed at marketing and saying, our revenue is down because marketing is failing. And marketing would be pointed at sales and saying, well, we're delivering you all these leads. What are you doing with them?
And they're all crap leads and they're not worth the time and blah, blah, blah. But I think that's the changing due to the technology, doing to the analytics, but also just we're having the conversations. They're sitting at the same table. Everybody's wearing their big boy pants or big girl pants, right? And they're willing to have open and honest and transparent conversations, because when we do that as leaders, when we do that in a company, we get better. It's really simple, just communication.
It's definitely. And none of this stuff is rocket science. So often the path to getting what you want in terms of your sales and marketing is a lot of very simple blocking and tackling and solving one problem at a time until you have a message and a sales process that work hand in glove to attract the attention of your customers, persuade them that what you're offering is compelling, and then calling them to action until they buy. And when you can see every step of that process, when you have the data that allows you to understand exactly what's going on, you can identify the weak spots in that messaging and in that sales process pretty quickly. And very often the solution is not that complicated. It's just you didn't realize you weren't addressing objections that the customer had, or you didn't see that there is a disconnect in one part of your your outreach approach, or hey, in this particular meeting, most of our customers drop off. Is that because we brought in a bunch of customers that really shouldn't be buying anyway, or is that because we're messaging something incorrectly?
Or it was too early in the process, right? I mean, all of
Yeah.
those things are there. That data is there, and I think that segues us to where we want to go. Where I'm holding up the book again. First fix your message. I think this helps us get all of those pieces right. So if we do a little bit of that work on the front end, and we really understand who we're talking to, why we're talking to them, what their fears are, what their desires are, what they really give a shit about, to put it in plain vernacular, then we can craft the right words to help them get there. Most recently, when we talked about offers.
Yep.
We talked about what was important there, so we're kind of jumping around the book a little bit based on my whimsy, maybe. But I want to go back to page 40 in the book, and early in the book, there's a great little triangle that you've broken into different shapes, and I think the competition paradox is the right way to look at that. Can we talk a
Yeah, a
little
little
bit
bit.
about that?
So yeah, so we were talking about how most of these problems in sales and marketing often have simple answers to them. And one of my goals in this book is to give people who read it, and it's written explicitly for sales managers and entrepreneurs, to give them frameworks they can use to think about marketing productively. And what I'm trying to do is take away the jargon and the complexity and you need this funnel and you need this digital advertising strategy. And, so much of the conversation around marketing these days adds complexity to it, and that we can get lost in the weeds. And so that pyramid is really an attempt to visually present the kind of key things that drive your marketing success. And so, this messaging pyramid says at the foundation, at the base of the pyramid, are the insights that you have as an entrepreneur or as a sales manager into what your customer wants, what your competitors are offering, and the unique features of your product and service, right? If you don't have an understanding of what you're selling, who you're selling it to, and the competition that you face, odds that you're going to get your marketing right the first time are fairly low. And then we move up that pyramid, those insights then get transitioned into a core set of stories that you tell that message what your product is, why the customer wants to buy it, why the customer should buy it, and why the offer is compelling. And then at the very top, once you have your message nailed down, then you can begin to translate that into all the different assets that you need to get that message in front of your customer, whether it's your ads or your landing pages, your website, brochures, trade show booths, collateral, all of that stuff. Those are assets that are vehicles for communicating parts of your message in a particular sequence with particular timing, so that it gets in front of your ideal customers. Is that tracking with you, Walter?
Oh, I mean, but the pyramid is constructed from the foundation, and we build that, and we go up from there. And the pretty stuff that everybody realizes, the collateral, the vehicles, as you say, those are the output from doing the work of making sure we understand what it is we're selling and how we should talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the kind of the key insights in that messaging pyramid is that the job of the entrepreneur is to get the insights right and to contribute to getting the message right. And this is one of the big mistakes that people often make when they approach their marketing, is they just assume that they'll kind of vomit a bunch of input at their marketing people. And then it's the job of the marketers to go and make it sound good and be pretty. And the advertising industry has really done, I think, a disservice to its clients over the years by downplaying the role of what the client actually contributes and claiming too much for what they're able to do in the absence of a compelling message from the customer. So the ideas in this book really come out of my having an epiphany early in my career that when our advertising campaigns failed, they failed in part or largely in part because we didn't do a good job of extracting the message from our customers. And so, while we might have done a great job making the message they did give us look good or sound interesting, when that message wasn't fundamentally compelling to start with, we weren't going to be successful. And so this book is really the product of 15 years of thinking about how to help my clients extract what they already know about their customers and their market, and be able to fashion that into a message that begins to get effective.
And I think we can't. We've talked about it in several episodes. I talk about it with clients all the time. That what is it? How are you differentiating? Is how I use it from a sales vernacular,
Right.
right? How are we differentiating ourselves from our competitors? What does that sound like? What does that look like? But when they first go to have those conversations with me, it's about features and benefits, right? They haven't really thought about what that person is moving towards or what they're moving away from, right? They don't really truly understand it. They're taking things for granted. And as an entrepreneur, we're thinking that our marketing person is going to figure all that out. And I think some of that's on both parties, right? We have to be able to tell them, but the advertiser, the marketing people should be able to say, hey, we can't. And that's what you've done with this book. We can't do the work we need to do without the data, without the information, without what's inside your head. So you need to go jam a straw in your ear and suck out all the goodness, right? And separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, and when you talk about clients that are overly obsessed with their features and benefits, I think you've really put your finger on the problem. The temptation or the tendency by the way people have been trained in business school or business classes to think about marketing is you use the features to sell the benefits. That's one of the core insights that people take away from that. But what they forget is that marketing and sales really takes place. The battlefield is the mind of your customer. It all takes place in your customer's mind. And that's really what that base of that pyramid is designed to address, right? It's those fundamental insights. And I think what you're pointing to in that question is something that I often call the competition paradox, which is that customers either or my clients that I've seen throughout my career either often think too little about their competitors. They say, well, I don't have any competition. No one does exactly what I do. No one has exactly the features and benefits that I offer. I have a unique offer. Right. And then the other side of the coin is that they think too much about the competition, and everything that they're doing is designed in terms to differentiate themselves from what their competitors are doing, even though their customers may not even be aware those competitors exist and they may not be aggressively shopping the category. But they're having a conversation that does not align with what's happening in their customer's mind.
I mean, I want to go back to what you said. I mean, all of that is profound, but the battle is in the mind of your customer and your prospect, right? Trout and Reese talked about that 30, 40 years ago, right? In that the battle for the mind. I forget the exact name of their book, but
I think it's I just think of it as the positioning book, because that's really kind of the core idea in that book that, and it was revolutionary at the time, that you're going to succeed in marketing to the extent that you position your product or service inside your customer's mind relative to what your competitors are doing. And that was very effective when you had means of distribution that were very constrained. So if you think about your retail store, there were only so many different kinds of toothpaste on the shelf, right? So you had the toothpaste category, which is the shelf of toothpaste, and then you had a few products that were competing for that purchasing dollar. And in a world like that, you can actually very accurately position your product relative to your competitors. To take another consumer good as an example, laundry detergent is a great one. And it's one that Tronton and Reese use in the book to great effect, right? Tide was the color safe, detergent that gets your clothes really clean, right? But then, and I'm going to mix up the brand names, but Cheer was about making your colors vibrant and keeping them vibrant, right? Those are two different goals that are messaged slightly differently. And it turns out that that difference in emphasis was enough to build billion-dollar brands, $2 billion brands in the laundry detergent category.
Hey, thanks for being part of Sales and Cigars. I wanted to share a new project that we just launched. I wrote a new book called Scale Your Sales. It's written for the CEO. It's a short, powerful book that explains the 7 critical mistakes that CEOs make with their sales organization. It provides actionable steps that you can take to fix those problems in your business today. And it might even help you get out of the sales seat yourself. So, appreciate you listening to Sales and Cigars. You can find this book on Amazon or wherever you buy books. Thanks. Today, it's a completely different environment to operate in, right? I mean,
totally.
You talked about toothpaste. The toothpaste I use as a kid, it's not on the market anymore. They don't make Gleam, right? That was the toothpaste that my mom thought was whatever landed in her mind. But when we talk about battling in the mind, today it's way more complicated. And we don't, I think entrepreneurs need to think about like what's going on in their mind. How do we go put a position in their mind? And then what are all of our options to do that? And that's what you're doing in the book. And that's what you're doing with this triangle. This diagram is mapping that all out for us to start to rethink, right? Because we're not selling laundry detergent for the most of the people listening here. They're not a big Procter and Gamble company. We're smaller, mid-sized organizations that have a complex B2B product. So we don't really, we think we know what's important, but we really need to start to analyze that and think about it and do the work to get there and talk to professionals in a way that we're using the proper tools to get there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think you put your finger really on the problem, and that is that positioning theory is less and less directly applicable today. And yet most advertising agencies, that's still the tool they reach for when they try to do marketing strategy. So I think I've told the story before. I was working for a time with a company that had spent $250,000 with one of the top Silicon Valley marketing firms, marketing strategy firms. And that $250,000 got them a positioning statement and an elevator pitch and a really compelling pitch deck about why the particular words they chose were going to position the product using this positioning theory called marketecture in the minds of their ideal prospects. And the problem was that it didn't really align with how customers were thinking about the product that they were offering before they had actually experienced it, right? One of the things that the firm had done is they talked to customers who had been using the product for a long time, and then they finally understood what it was about. But when you started messaging at that level, people really didn't understand what you did or why you wanted it, because you hadn't built a bridge between what the customer already understood and what they needed to know in order to buy the product or service. But then the other problem is that in most markets today, there are just too many competitors to be able to know which alternatives your customer is actively considering. If you think about what the internet has done, it has made it profitable to sell products that are increasingly to increasingly smaller niches, because you can ship the product direct to the customer. You don't need to have a large enough market to succeed at retail, and you can target your messaging with pinpoint precision. So, to take your example of toothpaste, there are toothpastes that use a particular kind of active baking soda for people who have particular health concerns. And those companies can sell millions of dollars at that toothpaste, but it never would have succeeded on a retail shelf. Right. But as a result of that, what I'm convinced we need to do today in order to succeed with our marketing is to craft a message that is robust to what competitors are saying, but that is compelling on its own. That's not just compelling in comparison with what your competitors are saying, but that explains in a trustworthy, compelling, engaging manner the outcome that you deliver to your customers, why they want to purchase the product, and it creates the trust that they need that you're actually going to deliver the outcome you promise. If you can do that, you're going to sell a lot of your product or service, even if you're not, optimally positioned against every, competitor on some three-dimensional chessboard. And
Exactly.
so,
I,
sorry.
I really think that, I mean, that point, you can niche, we can dial into who we're looking for. We can sell to that person who's got that one little concern, and that's all that they really care about. And we can, it happens in politics, it happens in consumer goods, but in the B2B complex sale world, what I see is confusion, right? Our biggest competitor often is the status quo,
Yeah.
right? It's way safer to do nothing. I'm not going to lose my job because we're staying with the people that we have because we know who they are, right? To go do something different is risky, right? So if we're not crystal clear about what and why and how that we're going to deliver something meaningful, we're going to save them time, we're going to mitigate their risk, we're going to make them or save them money. If we're not crystal clear about that and what that looks like, our marketing is basically worthless, right? Because we're
Yeah.
just confusing people.
Totally. When I was editing the book, I ended up removing an extra diagram because I got some feedback from early readers that it was complicating things more than I wanted to. But you can think of your message as the intersection of a Venn diagram. And that Venn diagram is made up of three different parts. There's what's in your customer's mind in terms of what they want, what they need, and what they believe about the world. That's the battlefield of persuasion, so to speak. But then another part of that is what you're offering, right? Your message has to be true to what you're offering, and it has to intersect with what the customer wants and needs. And it has to be congruent with what they believe about the world. But then that last part is what we've been talking about today, and that's the competition. Now, the competition is also something that's in your customer's mind, right? It's the things that they're aware of that are alternatives for delivering what they want. But so your message, it's kind of like a filter that you would apply to your message to just make sure that it's robust relative to what your competitors are saying, that you can explain why you're different and why those differences matter. If your message sits at the intersection of those, you're going to have something that is pretty compelling, regardless of whether your customer is actively shopping the category and obsessed with your competitors, or whether they're just encountering your solution for the first time and they don't know the first thing about those competitors.
But as a business owner, we need to be aware of and be responsible about, do we have a bunch of competition that people are comparing to us? Are we selling something that's commoditized? Because if we are, then we need to deal with that. But if we're selling something that is better than, and truly better than, right? I have a client who sells a product that extends the life of asphalt roads, right? And they have tons of competitors that call themselves the same things, but they do something completely different, and
Right.
they actually damage the road. So
Yes.
what we're switching with the way we talk about our product is we're not selling the product. We're helping educate about a high level thing called preservation. And then we're talking about how we do that. And now here's where you get to make a decision, Mr. Prospect. You get to decide if you want to do it this way or that way or that way. But
Yep.
here are the facts. And we can talk about it in a very high level manner without being rude, without being disrespectful, but like you're getting educated on this, and then you decide what's important. So it's really an education process initially for this client, even though they have competitors that are 30% less in price, but
Right.
but the value isn't there. So we talk about it from a high level there. But if we don't understand that as a business owner, and we don't understand how we're really truly positioned, and then your marketing doesn't have a shot, because you could go off in a direction that we're not commoditized when you really are. Then your marketing message will be completely off. If
Yeah. No,
sometimes you need to directly address it, and sometimes you can tangentially address it.
Yeah, no, exactly. You've said, I think, several important things that I'd like to highlight so that listeners don't miss this.
Yeah,
The
call the
first is
papers.
you've given a great example of what I was talking about, where today, because of things like remarketing and more extensive sales processes and the ability to do email sequences and stuff like that, you can make a more robust argument for your product or service and actually educate your customers so that they're prepared to be good clients. In the days of retail, where that was the primary method of distribution, you all you had was a slogan, right? Tide is the thing that gets your clothes clean, and the whole goal of marketing was to boil it down to a catchy slogan. Today, you can actually engage customers more comprehensively in a way that actually brings them up to the point where they can understand a much more nuanced sales message, like you described. But the other thing I'd like to point out is that we've spent a lot of the time today talking about the side of the competition paradox where we're too obsessed with competition, which is what I'd say the focus on positioning theory today often it does, right? It says the start of your marketing strategy is understanding your market and your competition. Well, that's one part of it, but it's not even the most important part these days. But the other part of it is thinking too little about your competitors. And I know from talking with you offline about this particular client that's a problem they maybe fell into before they started working with you, because no other asphalt company preserves roads in quite the way they do. They thought they didn't have any competition. And when another framework that I think is helpful is to kind of group your competition into three different buckets. There's direct competitors who solve the problem exactly the way you do, right? And so your client would say, well, I don't have any direct competitors because no one else puts maltine back in the asphalt.
Wow,
Well,
good memory.
yeah, that's true in a sense, except that you're forgetting that competition takes place in your customer's mind. And so, to the degree that your competitors are messaging that they preserve roads and you say you preserve roads, those competitors are a direct competitor to you in the customer's mind by virtue of the messaging they're using, right? And the understanding of the market. But then, once you understand who your direct competitors are, you also have to consider your adjacent competitors, which are people who who try to deliver the same outcome, but they do it in a different way. So I was doing this with a client yesterday. We're in the middle of a strategy process with them, and they're an asset manager financial planning firm. And so while, most of their big competitors don't do exactly what they do, they don't provide the kind of comprehensive financial plan and all the kind of bells and whistles that they do. Brokers and insurance agents and things like that, big wealth management firms and robo advisors, they all try to claim to grow your assets and take care of your money, even though they don't do exactly what you do. And so you have to take into account those as possible alternatives that your customer is considering and make sure your message is robust against that. And then finally, you have indirect competition, which is, several different things. Sometimes it's just doing nothing, right? Or doing it yourself, not seeking help, not making a purchase. That's one thing. But then also we all face competition in whatever we're selling from where else the money could be dedicated. So if you have a company that's considering whether to invest in a CRM system and they're considering whether to invest in machinery to upgrade their manufacturing line, at the end of the day, budgets are constrained. And so money that goes to upgrade the manufacturing facility might mean that you can't afford the CRM system. And so that's also a different kind of competition. And so you have to, keep that in mind and make sure that you're messaging the importance of what you are addressing for the customers so that they prioritize that over everything else they could be spending their money on.
I mean, and that one piece right there, we could spend 30 minutes talking about, is this funded, right? Is
Yes.
this project that we're talking about funded? And, that's where sales, there's a nuance with sales and marketing, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you said financial advisors, financial management, right? Something pops into my head, right? That I have an image. So that message goes to my brain, and then I have to be convinced that this is something different. And if we're as business owners, if we're not honest with ourselves and honest with our marketing people about what that landscape really looks like, we're just going to be pissing away money in marketing, and it's not going to work, and we're going to get frustrated, and we're going to keep spinning the wheel around. If we just stop and go back, read your book, understand those underlying fundamental steps, the blocking and tackling, as you've said before, that then we have a real shot of for that battle in the mind of our prospect.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons the strategy process that's in this book and that I do with clients is so successful is because we start at that insight level. We make sure that we're covering the entire playing field to start with. And what that enables us to do is try to avoid that competition paradox, right? We don't ignore the competition. We make sure we have an accurate understanding of it and that we're taking into account who our competitors are and what they're saying. But we're not, on the other hand, we're not obsessed with it. We're not starting there and focusing on it the way that positioning theory does. And the result is that we can develop a well-balanced message that works from first principles, beginning with the customer psychology and building out from there to create a message that attracts attention and persuades them to buy, and then translate that finally into the marketing assets. And I'm convinced that if you're having marketing problems, the reason is usually the case that you've started with the wrong end around. It is so often to work with your marketers from a starting point of, I need a website, or I need to run some ads that do this, that, and the other thing. And you treat it as a creative exercise because that's what most marketers like to do. They're creatives. They like to write and they like to design and they like to create videos, and they're all about the creativity of the asset, but they forget that the engine that drives the results, that attracts attention and creates conversions, is all what's happening inside of your customer's mind. And that begins with understanding the real state of play and making sure that you've got those differentiated insights as a starting point. When you have that and you can start to formulate your message the way that I describe in the book, your marketers are going to be many times more effective than they are today, because they're actually going to be starting with the raw ingredients that produce the outcomes in the first place.
And I think that's a great place to land. But so my advice to the business owners that are out there, it's the same as in buy the book, read through this, understand these principles. And if you want to go fast and you want to fix this, truly want to fix this quickly, call Matt and get a conversation going where you go through his facilitation process to get your marketing fundamentally headed in the right direction. That's going to give all of those other creative people the right tools to work with, give them the right message, the right targets, the right words to get to where you want to go. And then I think the other thing, I'll just tease this idea, is that we're developing something that we take that same style of getting your marketing right and taking that to the sales team, be able to give them the things that they need to address that. And one of the things that, I'll just land it here, the message that we were talking about with my client with the asphalt, we've got them to a point where I sat in a meeting the other day and the guy's like, yeah, but we're just looking at this product over here, the competitor, they do the same thing. They increase viscosity. They do. And the guy looked at me and goes, well, you agree? I'm like, they do. But how? How do they do it?
Right.
And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, how are they changing that viscosity, right? It's a technical thing, but how is that important? And I was able to ask him enough questions for him to realize, I don't want that.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, then how is that really apples to apples here? That's apples and soybeans, actually. So it's not the same thing. But if we don't have that connection to our marketing and we don't draw that thread all the way through, we still can lose, right?
Yeah, totally.
From the sales piece.
So often the answer comes only once you see the entire chessboard, so to speak. And that's really what the facilitation process you talked about is designed to do, is to expose all the moving pieces in a way that you can with really targeted precision, figure out exactly what you need to say at exactly the right time to overcome your customers' objections, get them interested, and ultimately get them off the fence and ready to buy. What you just described, and we've been talking about this client offline for I think almost a year now, is you've had to work with them step by step through that process. Uh, but if we had been able to bring that client through the kind of facilitation that you described that I offer as a starting point to my clients, you probably would have been at that point 12 months ago.
Oh yeah, I just have to get them in a headlock and get them in the room and get them to answer the questions. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, you've been through the facilitation process for yourself, and I think you can attest that once you actually get there, it's not that painful. It goes really fast, and it's actually quite a bit of fun.
But it makes us as a business owner, once you go through it, it makes us be like, holy shit, I didn't realize that's really what I need to be saying, because I thought it was what I was saying, right?
Right.
It's that, what's the term you use about knowledge? The curse of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have it as business owners.
Totally.
So go buy the damn book and then call Matt and get this done and get it right. I have Matt on here on a regular basis because I think this is going to change a small business, a mid-sized business. It's going to get you to where you want to go faster.
Yeah, totally. But the one of the things that is really gratifying to me about these tools is I've had people in Fortune 500 companies find this really eye-opening. Often the problems are really simple there too, but they get lost in all the complexity, all the way down to startups. This really is just a very small set of tools that you can use to think about what your message needs to be, and then to identify what your marketing needs to look like as a result of that. And so, I just encourage you to, if you haven't started already, get started today. Because once you start thinking about your business in this way, you're going to have a whole new perspective on what you need to be doing and how you can grow.
And if somebody's listened to the last episode, that was a call to action, asking to make an offer for you to actually go do something. So go do something, folks.
Yeah,
Matt, thank you.
Knowledge is useful, but it's entertaining, but it's not useful until you apply it.
Absolutely, you got to take the action. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Walter. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for being part of another fun episode of Sales and Cigars. Let me ask you a question. Are you tired of struggling to hire sales talent that's going to move the needle for your company? Well, maybe you should attend my Sales Hiring Secrets program and discover the number one mistake that business owners are making with hiring sales talent in their organization. The details are in the show notes. Click on the page. It gives you all the details. It gives you everything you need to know to solve the problem of sales talent on your team. Thanks.